Chris, thank you for being on the Leadership Lounge. I'm excited to get to know you. We don't know each other very well.
Right.
You were a connection from a friend, and from the little bit I do know is you kind of started from the bottom in like your journey, and then what it's like starting at that point, and then going through the restaurant industry, especially in the higher end restaurant industry, and then you where you are now. So I'm excited to hear that.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So why don't we kind of start from the beginning? I like to hear people's stories and kind of what, especially people who enjoy what they do and they have a passion for. So why don't you start from like how your journey kind of took to where you are starting in the career that you're in now?
Sure. Well, I grew up an only child until I was 10. So all growing up, both my parents in their respective business careers. Since a young age, I was always around adults. So talking to people was something that I grew up doing and really enjoyed. I'm a golfer. That, I think, was my first tidbit into the hospitality industry because I was a caddy for 12 years.
Yeah.
And so your job as a caddy outside of the carrying the clubs and all that is to, make the person that you're with feel confident, feel good about themselves, pick them up when they're down, make the highs higher.
Yeah. Did you have any go-to, can you, I was never a caddy. I was a golfer as well. But I played in not major tournaments or anything. So I never had a caddy. And I'm guessing if you caddied at a decently nice golf course, which I'm assuming you did, did you categorize certain people as this person gets frustrated really easily?
Oh yeah.
What are some things that you would do that was unique to all right, because you're really hoping for a good tip at the end of it.
Yeah.
So was there anything you did specifically to go above and beyond or differently than other caddies?
I similarly to restaurants like I am now and in caddying, I want people to like me. I wanted to try to make them laugh. Sometimes that didn't always work out, but you really have to read the room. Some people get mad very easily. I've had clubs thrown at me, and then I think my strategy on that was how can I bond with somebody? I don't like talking where it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So I would try to, find a little way where I could make them feel comfortable, and in turn, hopefully they play better. And I'm a golfer too, so I had the in of, knowing how golf works and being a decent player myself. And
did you get to play that course that you caddied at quite a bit, or?
I did. It was Mondays. We'd caddy in the mornings, golf at night, and then Mondays the club was closed to members, so us caddies would be able to go out there and play the course, which always felt special.
Well, it's probably important though too for you to know how each green breaks and
Sure.
hey, where you want to lay up to or whatever.
Sure.
I always have this because I watch all these stereotype videos, especially for golfers and stuff. What percentage of people out of 10 do you think you catch them cheating while you were caddying?
I would say it's low. It's always disappointing when that happens, though. I look at everybody almost as a little role model that was there. Somebody very close to them where they were successful, and I don't know, 5%.
Okay, so that's lower than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I golfed religiously for 6 or 7 years,
Awesome.
and let's just say a more honest bunch. But there's a lot of foot wedging going on.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, you found your ball in the middle of the woods.
Right.
Incredible.
I'd say there was a lot more in junior golf than at the country club.
Yeah. Do you have a memory from when you were caddying of somebody? I don't know. Did people request certain caddies? Mm-hmm. Did you have maybe a mentor or some things you learned from people while you were caddying?
Yeah, definitely. I think one gentleman in particular, he wasn't in charge of the caddy program or had any official role, but he was a big mentor. And being a caddy, especially, I'm sure it was times change. But when I was caddying, it's different than it was now. And you were almost looked at as the help sometimes.
Yeah.
There were definitely times where you didn't completely feel like a person. But whenever anybody would really, recognize you as a person and showed that they care about you, that was really important to me. And this guy's name is Bill Fitton, and he would request me. He was a very good golfer, but he it was almost like he was taking care of me. Like he always, give advice on not just caddying or golf, but life, take an interest in me. And just it really made me feel like I was special, which is, I think, unique in that setting. Because, the members are having their, business talks or whatever it may be. They have their lives going on. But this one guy was just turned into a big mentor, a role model. And I was like, man, this guy's super successful, and who am I? But he, definitely wanted to promote growth. We'd get, personal of like, oh, what are you doing? Where do you want to go? The college conversation, business and different aspects. But, not everybody did that. So when that happened, it was really special.
Yeah. So just not, people taking interest and be like wanting to develop younger people who they see like lots of potential in. I get that. So how many years did you caddy for?
12.
12 years. So what age did you start?
So I was playing golf one Monday at a local course, and I happened to play 36 holes straight walking with this guy, and I found out at the end of the first 18 that he was the caddy master, and he was like, have you ever thought about caddying? Yeah. And I was like, I can't wait to start when I'm 15, which is or 14 when you're legally allowed to. I was like, I'm 12. Yeah. And he was like, we can work around that. So I actually had to tell some of the members like I was getting held back in 8th grade because I theoretically should be in high school. But so kind of under the table, started when I was 12, all throughout college. I did that, and then last couple summers, just because I loved it, but until I think maybe I was like 20, 23, like even after school, I kept it up while I was bussing tables after school. So
so you're caddying. What did you want to do other than obviously in the hospitality world? You went to college for a few years. Can you talk about what you were planning on doing and how that changed?
I majored in I double majored in economics and finance. And
I was an economics guy too.
Yeah. I loved it. It was I took a AP economics class in high school, and that was my first real introduction to economics, and I just loved it. So, my path was always going to be somewhere in my mind, at least, in the finance world, an analyst, and thought I was going to sit behind a desk all day, every day. And I do love numbers. I love math. I love economics, but that was definitely the plan. And then I just kind of stumbled upon the restaurant industry and completely fell in love.
Yeah, that's completely different. So talk through, did you get like a job bussing tables as just a way to help pay for school? Mm-hmm. And then what were the aspects that you really liked about it? Because, I never really worked in the restaurant industry. Right. And I think for most people, bussing tables doesn't sound like the most extravagant or passionate thing. But like, what about it did you really like?
While I was in school, a gentleman that I was on the golf team with, his father owned a meat company, and one summer job when I wasn't caddying was to deliver meat. So I drive a truck around in the city, deliver meat, and that was pretty intense. But I got to go into all these different kitchens, and I always loved food. My dad was a very adventurous cook. My mom was like a home style cook. So that's what kind of sparked me in restaurants, was seeing all these different places and talking to all these different chefs. I was probably super annoying. Now that I see delivery drivers come to the restaurant, I'm like, I don't want to talk to you about, but I was always so curious, and a lot of the chefs were nice enough. And so that was sort of the connection of like, okay, why restaurants? And one of the restaurants that I delivered to, called Maya del Sol, where I work now, it was close to my college. I went to Dominican University in River Forest, Illinois, and Oak Park is the next town over.
Yeah.
So started as a busser. I walked in, and they asked what job I was applying for. I said server because I knew that's where the money was, and they laughed at me and said I could sweep some floors. So I said, okay, I'll start tomorrow. And walking in, I thought the restaurant was super cool. I thought the bar was super cool, and all these. I think what drew me in was the culinary aspect of it, both from food and drink. I like the artistic nature of it. I'm a big fundamentalist, so I like when things are done right. whether it's drinks or food, different techniques. So it was really interest in that brought me in. And I'm not your average busser, and I wasn't, a senior in college bussing tables. It was definitely different. And you're usually either a lifer that's been doing it for 30 years and that's what you're going to do, or you're a, high school kid just doing something that fits the school schedule. But I wanted to grow. I wanted to, everything I looked into, I wanted to know more. I wanted to be a good busser because I liked just doing a good job. And it was, you work with your hands, and I liked that. And then I just kept on wanting more and wanting more and wanting more. I did some food running, which was closer to the kitchen. I did some host, which is much more like just people facing.
Yeah.
That was a challenge. And then I did some bartending. I did some serving. Serving was definitely my favorite. But I'm a big competitor. I'm a passionate person. And, after I stopped competing in golf and volleyball in school, I was kind of missing that rush. And that was something that I didn't necessarily feel in my internships that I did, with different finance companies. A dinner rush at a really busy restaurant it's intense. And I wanted my role since I, got my first peek into it. I want the ball in my hand at the end of the game. And, when we're facing, being a really busy restaurant, each and every night, there's a huge dinner rush, and it's a lot to handle. But that was sort of my competition.
Can you talk specifically about what is it about the rush? Is it like a battlefield out there? You're just trying to make sure stuff doesn't fall apart, or is it like, oh, an order was wrong. How do I make sure that this turns out into still a good experience? What about that? That just sounds stressful to me.
Right.
It just sounds like, what about that's exciting?
I'm not good at sitting still. So it's especially being in my role where everything in the restaurant is essentially my responsibility. The pressure and the stress really comes from just the amount of people that we do.
Yeah.
We're not the world's biggest restaurant, but our patio has 200 seats. Our inside has 150 seats. So, for example, this past Friday night, it's a really small window of time, we did over 600 people. So that's, I break this down for employees. We're open 5 to 6 hours per shift, but we make 80% of our money in a 2-hour window.
Yeah.
So 80% of that volume is in a 2-hour window. So, general, you walk in, you're seated, a busser comes over, brings chips and water, then the server comes over, then the bar gets busy, then the kitchen gets busy, and then you just multiply that by all the people that you're doing. But it's my job is to make sure the ship floats, and it was taught to me as a good manager. Imagine you have a piece of paper and then you pour water on it. That water is just going to flow to all different directions. A manager's job is to find out where that water is going to flow to, build it up, stabilize it, and then on to the next one. So out of all the different departments, it's just constant motion, making sure that everybody's there, have what they need when they need it. And that's stimulating to me.
Yeah.
I think I find a little bit of peace in chaos because I'm firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. Can you give me an example of aspects of what make a great restaurant and aspects that makes them so like a good, let's do like a super high end, a Michelin star restaurant, a good restaurant, and then a bad restaurant. What are the differences there? Is it the cuisine? Is it the servers? If you were to say, list the most important aspects of what makes a restaurant great, what would they be?
Well, I think there can be a great restaurant that isn't necessarily, Michelin star. When you get to that realm, that's a different goal than what our goal is as a business for us. For what I am most familiar with, which is kind of combining the aspect of first, it's a business, but you're providing this experience. So what is success for us is being here 16 years in and success would be 16 more. Let's get to 50 years. Let's be
Yeah.
an 80-year-old restaurant. That's success.
So longevity.
And we operate with one goal, and that's how do we get people to come back.
Yeah.
That's
So
really
that's your KPI. That's your KPI is like, what can we do to get them to come back? And then how do you know if they come back? Is it because you just know you're doing your best to like recognize people who are in there consistently, or do you ask those questions? Are you recording that, or?
We have like a CRM, like a customer retention management software, a loyalty program, essentially. So that data is very cool to look at. But I think, there's not a consistent metric. One of the things that makes me busy too is there's so many regulars in this restaurant. We're not in downtown Chicago. It's not a tourist location.
Yeah.
We're a community center. I think that is another way that you could define success in the restaurant industry is, does the service, the decor, the food, the price point, the energy, does that fit the neighborhood that you're in?
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, then you're not going to get people to come back. But I think what we really try to do is, I think most dining experiences are forgettable. Yeah. So I drove an hour to get here. Even if we're classifying McDonald's as a restaurant, I probably passed thousands of restaurants on my 1 hour drive. Mm-hmm. Maybe hundreds, but a lot of them. So why are people choosing to come to my spot? And we want to try, we have a goal with every single table to make one personal connection, do something special, something that's memorable, that could be, it doesn't need to be this vibrant personality. It could be just giving really excellent service.
Yeah.
What can you make one thing that when that person leaves, like, man, they really cared. They took care of me. That we think is the best recipe to get somebody to come back.
What are you training your servers now? Like, can you give us some examples of like a great service? That's one, right? And I think that's, that definitely can be exceptional where you remember that. Are there any little things that you guys are doing or training your staff to do? Is it personality things of like, hey, these are some good questions to ask, or is it really kind of up to the server to build those experiences?
It is kind of up to the server. I mean, you can't put hospitality on a checklist. There's a component to it that you can't just check the box. We do have steps of service, and I think that those steps do, if you complete everything, that in itself will be a good service, but there's a personality component that needs to be there. Mm-hmm. It's simple things, making sure you're there when, people need to have whatever they want when they need it.
Yeah.
Everybody's had a restaurant experience where stuff takes too long, or they feel like the server forgot about them. You need to be there, but it's really gets down to the person. We don't want, in our hiring process, we don't want order takers. We want servers. We don't want somebody who's just, hi, my name's Chris. I'll be taking care of you today. Here's your food. Here's your drink. Here's your check. That's it.
Yeah.
What can we do more that makes somebody laugh, makes their occasion more special? And it takes care. We use two words, care and aware. If you can demonstrate that you care, and you can be really aware of what the guest needs, that's something that will really get them to have a good time.
Yeah. Our mutual friends, Harry and Melissa, your restaurant is their favorite, and that's how we got connected. They're my neighbors now. And I was talking with Harry this weekend, and he goes, really, it's the attention to detail. And he said they go to nice restaurants whenever they're traveling and stuff, but they talk about, it's like the little things. It's like someone spilling something. How long does it take for it to be cleaned up? And I think that's the where part you're saying. Mm-hmm. And they kind of grade that. And obviously you, but the owners of the restaurant, like, is it just like a top-down thing of like caring and professionalism? Because the restaurant industry is hard. To, number one, hiring probably, that everyone's looking for jobs, but retaining good people. Can you kind of talk through a little bit about like how that top-down approach works? And, Harry and Melissa specifically said, it's like, really, you have a lot of retention too. Like you've had a lot of waiters and waitresses that stay there for long periods of time. Yep. So what are you guys doing differently that people are not doing?
I have really fallen in love with owners of the restaurant because they embody what we have the same values.
Yeah.
The owners live 10 minutes away from the restaurant, not even 5 minutes away from the restaurant. And when I first started managing, they were like, okay, the biggest rule is no one to ask for help. If you need anything, if you're getting really busy or the sink gets backed up, give us a call. We're 5 minutes away. We'll be here always. And, there were plenty of times where, we just get so busy for whatever reason. And, a lot of times that's when things get out of control. Just from the sense of, we'll take a long time to make drinks, a long time to make food. And that's sort of when things get quote unquote bad. But in the times when I needed help, they'd be there 5 minutes and they're the owners of the restaurant, but they would just come to me. What do you need? You want us to wash dishes? You want us to bus tables? You want us to see people at the host desk? And to me, that was so inspiring, and it makes it easy in the hiring process because I'm an extremely hands-on guy. If you step into the restaurant and see me working, you probably wouldn't think that I'm a managing partner or the GM. You'd probably think I was a busboy because I just love, helping everything. I also think that's the best way for me to see. But if the owners will come in and wash dishes and bus tables, if I'm going to do the exact same thing, that's just flat out the expectation.
Yeah.
If you think that you're a server and you put in your time and you're done bussing tables and you're done, I don't make everybody wash dishes and I don't wash dishes all the time, but no job is below you.
Yeah.
That's really important. And the owners make that really easy for me to say because it's like, okay, if the people all the way at the top would do anything, I would do anything. That just needs to be the expectation. Service is very hands-on. It's very physical. It's a grind. And I think when people aren't good workers, that really shows in the service. So you need to have hustle. You need to have heart. You need to believe in everything that I'm saying. That's sort of how we hire people. Do you believe in this? Okay, you have to demonstrate it.
So, I mean, it's an ecosystem. So I'm a business person. If I was ever going to be a waiter or waitress or working for a company, one thing I would look at is like it's an ecosystem. If people are having that experience, I know me as a tipper, it's like if I have a good experience and it's someone who I see consistently, I am way more willing to give a 30, 40, 50% tip or more for that. And it's like, but I also see restaurants where I see someone new every time and the service isn't consistent and it doesn't have that the food is inconsistent, where I'm like, I don't want to encourage that. It's not that, and that doesn't happen all the time, and it's not always the waitresses or waiters' fault, but that does affect them. Yeah. It does affect what they're paid. And ultimately, if you can't make a livable wage, you're going to go somewhere else. It's the stepping stone. So I agree with that. So you do all these different things. How did you become manager? Was that like how many years did that take? And then what was that conversation like?
I think that the one characteristic of a good manager in the restaurant industry is that the restaurant industry is a labor of love. It's not, it's not glamorous. It's hard work. Even me being 10 years into the industry, when everybody else is hanging out and partying and relaxing, you're working. That's tough on family. That's tough on relationships. So if you aren't passionate about it, you can't do all that.
Yeah.
So that's the number one characteristic in my mind about what makes a good manager, because you have to accept what the job throws at you and you have to love it. I just really loved the restaurant business. And then when I went into management, but when I was a server, everybody kind of had this, okay, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to, when are you going to stop working in restaurants? When are you going to do that? And especially graduating with an economics and finance degree, it's like, okay, what are you doing with your life? But when you bring the business component in it, that's why I love the job so much, because I essentially have 2 days. I have a business day and a service day.
Yeah.
So, my schedule is roughly 10 to 10. From 10 to 2, the employees aren't in the building yet. I'm handling the business aspect of it. Looking at numbers, ordering schedules, building maintenance. We have a very old building. That's my 10 to 2 job. And then the staff comes in, and then take care of the service the rest of the time. So it's unique. It's not your average job, but I like the business aspect of it. I like the service aspect of it. I like food. I like drinks, and I like bringing that all together. The people component, both the employees and the guests. It's the restaurants. It's so relationship heavy with staff, with guests, and I think that's part of the magic to it. So that was what I wanted. I felt like I didn't feel like I needed a real job because I have one and it's unique, but those components of it, you need to really enjoy it. The business is super stimulating. It's tough. Everybody's like, when are you going to own your own restaurant? It's so risky. It's challenging.
It's the number one failing business.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously a massive, industry, but
right.
it's the number one. I think I think I heard 1 in 5, 1 in 5 make it.
Mm-hmm. You're an anomaly if you make it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's surprising when you see a mom and pop shop, like, wow, like you really know what you're doing. It's typically they don't last very long because you get burnt out. If you're not making money and doing a good job, it's like you can't last.
Yep.
You were talking about when are you going to get a real job? A friend was supposed to join me, but I went to St. Elmo's Steakhouse in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And it was like a night after I was in the military for 12 years, and my buddy just had other things he had to get done, so he couldn't join me. So I felt bad. I was at like a table all by myself. Mm-hmm. Not bad for me. I felt bad for the waiter that he wasn't getting a bigger tip, so I was going to leave him a good tip anyway. Nice guy, probably 55. And I'm just like, you know what? I like talking with people. We just ended up talking and kind of becoming quick friends. And I'm just like, you don't mind me asking, how do you do working in this? He's like, well, been here 25 years. And he goes, I make about $250,000 a year as a waiter. And because, your average dinner, there's $100 per person with drinks and everything. And he's like, yeah, I'm making 25% every single time. I go, do the math. But he had like 3 acres in like downtown Indianapolis at this beautiful home. It's like, I think that there's so much in starting somewhere, working your way up and staying. Like you can't, even as an owner, and, I've been a business owner for a long time, that preaches so much more. And then also preaches so much more to who you are. And those people typically are the ones that get chosen to be a manager, general manager. But also, if you're a good worker, you rise to the top quickly. I'm sure you weren't a busboy for very long.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like, I was a busboy for years. It's like, if you work hard, you get moved up. But I think a lot of people, they would look maybe at being a busboy. It's like, oh, that's maybe below me. Mm-hmm. And, I always tell people, like, if I have to provide for my family, I'll do any job. Right. I don't care. Nothing is below me. But I think having that mentality, you also probably have the compassion for those people who have done that job that someone who hasn't would not have. Yep. So, I mean, your restaurant, that's a lot of seats. So technically you could have 400 people, close to 400 people sitting at a time. How do you prepare to staff for that? Because I'm assuming do you guys do reservations there or is it walk-in?
During COVID, we actually switched. So our patio for the first 12 years of business was only no reservations, first come, first served, and there'd be a line of 50 people waiting, table gets up, next person. It was very simple, fill out a giant list and just get people down as soon as tables get up. But during COVID, we were forced to do reservations. It was a mandate that we had to plan more. But that actually really helped out the business, being able to plan in that way. So now we are just reservations. That kind of helps us prepare a lot more. We know what's coming in. I'd say we're probably 65% reservations. We still get a good amount of. We'll always take a walk-in if we have the space. So.
That's probably a good indication if you have a healthy restaurant is if you do reservations, then how many people reserve. Because we have a restaurant here in town where if you don't reserve, like you're not getting in. And it's not really expensive. It's, it's, I guess a little bit more in like a Chili's or something. Sure. But it's like, it's the atmosphere, it's the waiters and waitresses. It's like, it's that experience you talk about. You go, like you have like, go there, they have some weird drink you can get, cocktail or mocktail you can get. And it's like you remember that. You're like, I want to go back. Yeah. Because it's not the same. It's like you're getting, you have that churn. So I always like to ask like more like personal questions of like, what show or movie do you think depicts what it does the best job depicting what it's like working in a restaurant? Or what's your favorite movie inside of those demographics?
I don't know many restaurant specific movies. Corny sports movies. I'm a big Remember the Titans fan.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, you know, sort of a coming together story. I guess I would gravitate towards that because it's so diverse. I mean, we work with so many different people, and I feel like there's a magic that has resulted from it. So I guess I'd probably say, you know, Remember the Titans. People come in, we have, I would say our servers, our employees, not just servers, range from 18 years old to 65.
Yeah.
And all different types of backgrounds. And, you know, there's a period of time where you were talking earlier about turnover. I think the magic really happens when you hit that 2-year mark. And we're super fortunate, you know, reopening from COVID in 2020. Our core service team right now, tapering off of patio season when our team shrinks, I would say 80% of the service team has been there since we reopened from COVID in 2020.
It's amazing.
Which is, and that I think is what, you know, thinking of the end where everything comes together and Remember the Titans, that we are a little bit at that point right now. You know, COVID was scary. Are we going to make it through? This is the first year, 2023, where it felt like normal again. In sales and guest counts and, you know, just that volume. And when you get to have a relationship with people that long, the guests feel that. You mentioned, you know, seeing somebody new. We're a country club that doesn't have an initiation fee.
Yeah.
You know, on a Friday or Saturday night, part of me being busy is saying hi to all these different people. I like that. I have a list of 10 people I need to stop by their table and just check in, see how they're doing. Yeah,
and that makes a big difference. Like for me, I lived in Muncie, Indiana, and I had a restaurant I'd go to, and they knew who I was, and like that's why I went there.
Yeah.
They had good food and good service, but there's a lot to be, you know, just those little things like, hey, how you doing, and like they know your name,
makes you feel special,
and like, oh, you want me to start you off with this because they know you like that, and I think that goes a long way, and I think you kind of said it too. It's like, it's the culture of your employees that make a huge difference, because you have one, you can have a super good performer, but if they're not a good team player, it's like poison.
Completely.
Yeah, it's like poison. And you know, even in this business, I've been in business for 12 years in this industry, and nothing happens quickly. But it's like we have learned over the years is like you have to prioritize like team, and you have to prioritize good work-life balance. You have to prioritize those who are respectful of others. Now, you know, I heard the saying, it's like always be quick to fire, slow to hire. And that has been a huge thing for us of just like, hey, if you're taking up a lot of resources and you're not a good team player, you're not going to last here very long. What we've now done is in our interview process, it's like, hey, if you're motivated by working hard, being compensated because of that, you like to put your head down and work and be a part of a good team who are doing the same thing, you're going to love it here. If you're lazy, if you just want to come in, check the boxes, and you don't want to get better, if you don't eventually want to get promoted or move into different positions, you should not take this job.
Completely agree.
And, you know, it's hard to say that when you need to get people in the door, but we have found that the people we got in the door when COVID was really bad and you had to really go out there and just do anything you could to get staff in the door, it ended up being like a long residual effect for our other employees and their enjoyment. So it's those little choices and being really picky on who you bring in that like make the big difference long term. Yep. So like what when you bring someone in for an interview, because you're like you said, you're interviewing from every walk of life.
Yep.
What are you looking for? Do you have like a specific like list of like, oh, that's a keyword that I like to hear, or can you talk a little bit about that in your process of hiring?
Yeah, I think it's a little different for different positions, but you know, the bulk of the front facing, I mean, anybody in the front of the house that's dealing with people, we have a little list of, you know, different characteristics, but I try to avoid the more standard questions. I'm really in an interview trying to have a conversation with you and see how easy it is to talk to you. I want to get a little bit into your thought process, see what do you believe success is, and that can start at, okay, when you're dining out, what's a good experience to you? I want people that think about it as more than just food and drink. I have to, in that conversation, see and feel passion. Similarly, I agree with everything you just said about the hiring process, because if you don't love it, if you don't have passion for it, the guest is going to feel that. And that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Do I feel good talking to you? Can I tell that you're into it? Because if you're just coming here to, again, be that order taker, check the box, that will fall into the rut of being unmemorable, forgettable.
Yeah.
So that's really the biggest thing. I need to see passion, need to see some emotion. And not everybody's like that. Not everybody's a knock your socks off. But if you don't have a vibrant personality, you can still definitely do the job. But then you have to be a complete fundamentalist. You have to be able to provide a clean, precise, get people what they want whenever they need it. So it's not just all personality. You can be a very good server without super bubbly, vibrant. But I think you can tell that in some conversations.
Yeah. So, a big part of this is like, I've met, and, honestly, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, they are like, oh, it'd be nice to own my own restaurant. So I go hang out there, my friends could come, whatever. So if you could break it down to like 3 principles or 3 pieces of advice for people either who own a restaurant and want to have a great restaurant, maybe things aren't going well, or people who want to open a restaurant, what would be like your key like rocks? Like these are like, if you can get these right, it's going to be a really good foundation for you. What would they be?
I think, first and foremost, the location and needs to match what you're putting in there. I think that's a big reason why restaurants fail is, if it's not something that people are going to like, enjoy, or feel comfortable in, it can't be too nice. It can't be not nice enough. It needs to be right there. So the concept needs to match the location, and I think that can't really do much without that. I think the personal component to me is the biggest part, and a lot of the relationships with staff, with guests, showing that you care. That is, I think that's what separates people. If I think of any dining experience that I haven't liked, I think obviously my brain works a little bit differently in restaurants, but you can feel when there's not a sense of passion and care, and just the opposite you can feel when there is. So if first is location, once you get in that location, do you have people that are working for you that can help make an energy? I think that's when that's lacking, that's felt. And then, it's third, it's, it is a numbers game too. Hospitality is tough because hospitality can be expensive.
Yeah.
You need to make good long-term financial decisions. When we started the restaurant, a small example is, the plates that we used. We used a cheaper plate because, that's a cheaper upfront cost, but we were breaking nobody wants to get a plate of food with a chip in it. So we used a different plate that is quadruple the cost, but there's a lifetime chip warranty. So unless somebody drops that plate's good for forever. Kitchen equipment. I mean, stuff can pile up so quickly from a cost perspective, whether it's building or goods. And if you're not on top of that, restaurants don't usually run with a big reserve of cash. It'll put people under if there's an accident or something happens to the building, or I'm putting finance on it last, even though that is oxygen for a business. But I don't think you can even get there if you don't have those first two.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not making money, you can't stay open. I think what's hard too is everyone's like, this is expensive, and maybe people might complain. But if you're offering those other levels of service, people don't mind paying.
Right.
You know, if you're going and the aesthetics aren't great, maybe even the food is good, it's like, okay, I'm much less likely to pay a premium for that. But if I'm going and I'm enjoying myself and I'm getting good service and it's a good atmosphere, I'm willing to pay that premium. So it's like those are maybe upfront, untangible things that you're selling because it's not an actual physical product. But that makes a massive difference. I mean, me and my wife, when we're going out to eat, it's like a mood thing. Yep. So like there's 2 restaurants here in town, both we really love, but one is kind of loud and it's a great atmosphere, is the one I talked about earlier, and it's most people's favorite place to eat. But sometimes me and my wife are like, I don't want to yell. Mm-hmm. And there's another restaurant we love that's a little bit more expensive, but it's quiet. And we can talk and enjoy ourselves, and they have a great bar atmosphere. And I think knowing your niche and like holding to it is important because people want to know what they can expect. Yeah. Because if I would go to that other restaurant, it's a little more expensive and it was louder, I'd be like, well, I'll just go to the other place. Right. You know, right. Now. So it's like, I think knowing also too, like your niche and then holding to that. How much do you guys get a lot of customer feedback? And then do you use that to, maybe on plates you might offer, or is that mostly a top-down approach for you guys?
I would say we are trending towards taking less action on feedback, just because at this point in the game, you know, I think when I first started managing, all I wanted was feedback, and I wanted to please everybody. Yeah. But you can't please everybody. And so when you make decisions, what is the best decision for the most amount of people for the longest amount of time? Yeah. And that's where it becomes difficult, because you don't want anybody to be upset. You don't want to make people unhappy. But, you know, my job is to make the whole good. Yeah. And if you try to listen to everybody's feedback and do what everybody wants, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I love this. I just read this story recently. Southwest Airlines, there was just a passenger that would complain and give feedback every single flight. And this complaint made it up to the president or CEO of the time, and he would reply back, and they would reply back to complaints, and he said, "We will miss you." And then sent it back to her saying, like, you can't bend to the will of one, because then, you know, it's an ecosystem. Like you might like, oh, people like this, like, oh, we put a ton of resources in, and I've been down that path before. I'm just like, hey, we if you guys could do this for us, that'd be great. Mm-hmm. And then what it does is it makes the rest of your core suffer. Yeah. And no, I agree with that a lot. And I think also too, trends, I mean, in food, probably drinks too. You're probably just like someone. Do you ever have it where you're like waitresses or bartenders like, oh, I saw this TikTok, we should like think about offering this drink or something?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely happens. And I really like being in a mom and pop shop because you have a little bit more flexibility. Yeah. Which is nice. We can try different things if we want to. Now we need to stay on that brand. We need to know our niche, and we are a Latin fusion concept. Fusion's a nice little insurance policy because it allows you to bring in other things. But as long as, you know, we're staying within brand, we can be adventurous.
Do you see like the trends affect what people are ordering? So like obviously right now, like the carnivore diet is like a big thing. Are you seeing like, oh, like steak is selling way more than it was a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think in a positive way. I think that people are starting to pay more attention to nutrition and holistic health, which is great. But it's both in food and beverage. Espresso martinis are the hot thing right now. Really? You know, and a couple of years ago, mezcal had this huge bang, and Harry and I nerd out over bourbons. Bourbons were huge in the last 18 months. It's so interesting to see how those kind of waves go. But there's definitely an aspect of, you know, and you have to follow the trends to some extent, you know. if an espresso martini is kind of a thing that everybody needs to have now. If you don't have it, like, what are you doing? So being aware of those things and not just getting stuck in one spot. A big part of the job too is staying current, seeing what other people are doing, and you don't want to. We don't like to be the first person doing anything. We also don't like to be the last.
Yeah. So you've talked a lot, and I was just doing some math. So if you're working, because I know you guys are closed Monday, Tuesday.
Yep.
You're doing 10 to 10. That's 60 hours a week. In a high stress environment, which you enjoy, which is great. What do you do for yourself and for you and your wife? Like, what do you do to recharge? And then maybe what disciplines do you have to like prepare for your day?
I think I'm obviously a person who likes to talk, and I'm a very social person. I think I'm an extroverted introvert. My reset on my days off. I don't like going out in crowds. I don't like being around a ton of people. I'm essentially the face of the restaurant, so my job is just always around people. So I would say one thing that I love about a recharge is quiet. I like being outside. I'll go golf by myself, during a sunset, and that to me is just a little bit of a release. I love cooking. Me and my wife, on our days off, will at least cook once a week, once one of those 2 nights, if not both of them. And that just kind of one-on-one time is really my biggest reset. But as I'm by no means old. I'm 31 years old, but I'm different now than I was when I was 25. I think the restaurant industry sucks a lot of people into a rut of your day doesn't start until the evening. You get done with work, you go out, you party. There's a lot of partying in the industry. So as I am in this for a longer period of time, and I've made the decision to be in this industry for a while, taking care of yourself is an important aspect of it. So, just being healthier in general, because if you, it is a large workload, like you said, and burnout is super common. If you don't take care of yourself first and foremost, you can't, especially as a manager, be there for the other people. So I view, decisions I make are not just about me. There's a lot of people that I'm responsible to and for, and I try to be the best that I can be to everybody, because if I'm not on my game, if I'm not in the right mindset or ready to rock, then that trickles down, and then the guest feels that. Yeah,
I have a good friend she works at one of the restaurants here, and she talks about like her favorite thing about the restaurant industry is actually at the end of the day when everyone just sits and has like a beer after work, and they talk about they basically are like all the frustrations that they had.
Yep.
Like, can you believe this person did this and this, and like I could see that being really enjoyable of like your time to like let all that out, because really you're probably suppressing a lot of feelings and emotions during the day, because it's like you can't if a customer's being ridiculous or whatever, you have to like have that. I mean, are you still a part of those circles, or is it like 10 you're home? Or
I try not to. That's another balance that I try to find, because when you make it through those tough days and you are there at the end and you are able to share the experiences that you just mentioned around, a fire pit or whatever, our version of that is, on this big patio where, we'll do 600 people sitting down on that patio, string lights above us, little fire going at the end of a really long, hard day. It's cool to see the peace after all the chaos that just went through it. Yeah. It is nice to let those things out, but I try to be a part of them. I try to be connected, but not do it every day to those, because, but you definitely need to be a part of it to get close at a restaurant.
I feel like that's when the bonding is happening.
It really is. And those are really special moments. And anybody my wife's a nurse, and they'll do the same thing. They'll go, she's a night nurse, so everybody will go out to breakfast after a long shift, and you just have that bond, the language, the feelings. It's fun to share with people that just went through the same thing.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing your story and what you've been doing. The advice too. I think the hospitality industry is hard, and you know, I don't know if people are getting easier to deal with or harder to deal with. But I love hearing that, and hopefully that's encouraging to a lot of people. So I appreciate you being on.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited because like getting these different like looks into the industry. I think like restaurants like always one. People are kind of curious. Like, is it like the shows and like you know what's fun about it? What's like the hard parts about it? I love hearing like the different like stories and perspectives of that. So it's awesome.
Good.